Disappointing result at the weekend, David, but a great match for your boys to bounce back in this one, isn't it?
Definitely. Listen, we've been a good run in recent weeks. Naturally, Saturday brings a disappointment because we didn't reach the levels that the guys have and we know we're capable of doing. So obviously when you lose the game, it does become a little bit frustrating. So it's one of those ones where we need to bounce back quickly because the next game is obviously the most important one now, and it's certainly a good one because the level of the opposition is one that we want to go against quite frequently. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and of course when you met Ajax before in Amsterdam, it was possibly the result was unjust given that you hit the post countless times and you really should have got a point at least out of that one. Is there a feeling amongst the squad to maybe put that right, David, in tomorrow?
Well, I think that's got to be part of our motivation for sure. Like I said to you, though, that game was the first one. It was probably the first bit of learning what this competition might look like. Realising quite quickly if you make a mistake or something you don't get quite right, you can be punished very, very quickly. I think their second goal comes off the back of us hitting the post, and within 2 or 3 passes on the kind of counter attack they've scored. So we know that level it can happen, so we have to make sure we're ready for those moments. We know that we'll have to defend as you would do at this level of game, but we also know that we can carry an attacking threat. I think the second half we were a bit more aggressive in terms of how we pressed. We got closer to them, so and naturally we got some opportunities off the back of that as well. So yeah, there is a frustration in having not won that game or at least picked up a point, but we absolutely believe that part of the performance shows that we can take a performance into tomorrow's game and hopefully get a positive result at the back end as well.
Yeah, and in terms of the experience for the boys taking part in this competition, David, what will this do to them, and what is that they're obviously babies in terms of their footballing careers?
Listen, it's a brilliant competition. We've played in the Youth League before, but it was the domestic pathway where you're having just immediate into the knockout phase right away. This one you've had to go against Napoli, Ajax and Liverpool and play them home and away. It's a great learning curve for the players, and I think in itself we can look at some of the games. Playing home against Napoli and playing away against Napoli was 2 completely different games, and that in itself, from a coaching point of view, and us working out that the games are going to be different, even though it's the same level, so it's the same opposition. The players recognising what we might have been successful at in the home game is different for the away game. So it's those in isolation, just looking at the teams, the opposition has been fantastic for us. But I think what's also been reassuring when you look at some of the performances, if not in complete, the full 90 minutes, but certainly from parts of every game, with the exception probably I'd say Liverpool away. Some of the performances have been excellent. Some individual performances has been really, really strong, and it just shows that the players have got to give them confidence at what level they can certainly compete and perform at, and hopefully going forward they'll use that as a good springboard.
Finally from you, David, is Alex Lowry going to feature tomorrow for you boys? I know he was on the bench for the senior side last week in Naples, but will he play any part for you boys tomorrow?
Well, I think there's still conversations. I'll sit with the first team staff this afternoon and just finalise 1 or 2 any player movements they require, and we'll finalise it from them. So unfortunately I don't have that answer for you right now. I'd love to have it, but we'll when I speak to the guys they can let us know.
The final game of this competition, and sadly you can't move forward into the knockouts. But in terms of, we've talked about where Rangers find themselves, being in the Lowland League, friendlies, a lot of your players involved with various international youth systems. In terms of the Europa League and the quality of the players you're coming up against, how does that fit in? Has that been a challenge to the players? Has it been a challenge to your staff? And also generally, in how you wish to develop at Rangers, has it given you food for thought?
Listen, we've loved the competition. It's absolutely a huge part of the players' development. We've always, since I think the last 5, 6, 7 years, we spoke about playing best v best competitions, and that, if you remember a few years back, we took on the challenge of travelling and playing those level of opposition every other week, and it was an excellent sort of addition to what we did. Doing it on a competitive level adds another layer to that again. So I think that in itself, you've got the best v best games, but you've also got it in a competitive environment where you're looking to try and get out the group stage and go to the next level again and take it to a knockout competition. Where it fits in, we want to challenge our players in the best environments we possibly can. In those games, are absolutely, from a coaching point of view, we spend a lot of time looking at the tactical, part of the game and trying to make sure our players are best prepared for what might come into the game, but recognising that as we're doing that, the opposition will be doing the same to us, potentially looking at what we do and trying to find opportunities and threats that we would bring to the game as well. So there's always a lot of moving parts. We'll look at as I said, we spoke about Napoli in the first game. it was different the second game, and what we tried to do in the second game, we had success in the first, didn't work. And the good thing is the players recognised that as well and managed to find solutions as the game was developing, and not necessarily waiting for that break at half time to try and work it out at that point. The rest of the programme, listen, we want to, you're looking at bringing the players closer to men's football. So at the moment, the Lowland League allows that opportunity to do that. I know not every team will be necessarily senior players. Some will be closer to our age, some will be older, some will be mixed. So there's very much, what I think is good at the moment is the programme that we have brings a variation of challenge, and it's up to us to try and prepare the players for what each of the games bring. At times, I've loved the way the players have reacted, and listen, sometimes when we've had struggles, it's good for them as well, because we have to find opportunities to learn in those moments as well. Ideally you want to win, that will always be a part of what we try and do, but we always have to try and find the right level of performance and learning for the players as well, and I think we're finding that along the way as well.
In terms of the goals you've conceded, and in terms of the 2 games that you've won, has that been a bit of a learning curve for the players, and able to say to them, you're talking about fine differences here between, winning 3-2, losing 3-2. Is it really bringing out, are you able to use that when you're coaching them to say, what do we learn from that game in terms of those moments when you maybe switch off, or, you think you're getting the ball and you relax a little bit? Can that help you, or is it just one of these things where by the time you get them, most of the boys are already turned on to that?
No, listen, it has to help us, because the reality is, like I said to you, if you look at the second goal against Ajax away, that comes off the back of our set play. We hit the post, within 2 or 3 passes they've scored a goal, so it's preparing to deal with the next phase of the game and not focusing so much on us having the ball and waiting to see what happens. It's almost playing the game ahead of the game, and that's part of the challenge in those ones. If we look at that game, if we'd picked up a point in that game, our involvement in this competition is still live, because you're going to this game tomorrow knowing that a win can take you through. If we look at the Liverpool home, the moment where the players had the ball in the corner flag at 3 each, where that moment where we can stop the game at that point, the game hopefully would finish 3-3 potentially, and again at this point we're still live. So there's individual moments within the competition where, and you spoke about the fine lines, that has been a clear bit where you will get punished if you don't get a decision or an action or something quite right, and it's frustrating, it's disappointing, but we have to learn. And what it then does for us, we can then take these scenarios into training and present the players where we can, and at these opportunities within the training sessions to try and put them there again, so when it does happen, and it will, where we'll have to deal with it again, we're ready to step onto it quicker. So that's part of this learning bit. It's different in different teams play in different ways, and we have to try and find solutions along the way as well. And it's been great, because I love when something happens that's different for the players, rather than it being, we hate doing prescribed training. We hate making the players think it's always going to be one way that the game works, because it doesn't. It's unrealistic to think that. So when something happens that is different, it's a great learning opportunity for us, but more importantly for the players, because we try to help them in their journey to try and get beyond the stage that they're currently playing at.
Can I just finish off with, without giving too much away, in terms of your team selection tomorrow, do you have any injuries or suspension problems?
No, listen, we don't have any suspension problems. There is potential that we will be some player movement in terms of squads, the team selection. We're looking at that today. We've looked at 1 or 2 different potential outcome or options that might exist between now and us leaving today, and we'll have that finalised and be absolutely ready to go. But we've got a team in our head. We pretty much 99% there. Probably just one position we're looking at that might change, but we believe obviously the group that we've got, they're ready and prepared, and it's up to us to go and perform now.
There's no potential for us to progress from this group now, the way that it's played out. Does that take an element of pressure off, do you think, going into this game, where all that this is about is just going out, perform to the best that the players can, and compete against a team like Ajax, where that should be the aspiration of where we want to be as a youth setup, kind of aspire to be like an Ajax and compete against them in this game tomorrow, do you think?
No, I don't think it takes pressure off us. I think part of being here is managing that, and I think we've got to first and foremost hold ourselves accountable and responsible for what levels we want to achieve, with hopefully in terms of performance and the outcome result at the end of it. So I think the pressure always exists. I don't think that changes, and I don't really want it to change. I don't want the feeling that the game has less importance because it doesn't allow us to qualify. We are disappointed that we don't have the opportunity, and I think in some of the groups, if you achieve 9 points, then that might be enough in some of those groups that they can actually qualify. So our objective tomorrow is to push to try and get closer to obviously getting to the 9 points and be competitive and successful within this individual game. Ajax are a renowned club that have always been competitive and produced players along the way for many years now, so we want to hold ourselves against that level for sure, but we want to show that we can absolutely compete and perform and hopefully get a positive outcome at the end of it.
Have you noticed in terms of the group and the players a kind of bond building in terms of the camaraderie with the experiences of the travelling, particularly in an environment like Naples? And do you think that you get that more from these experiences than you would do from just typical travelling to Lowland League games and Gala Shields and whatnot?
Listen, I think this competition plays a huge part. I think, the players are probably individually able to answer it better than I can, but when you watch it and you see, I think the travelling, out to play our game, to go to the first team game, experiencing supporters at the game last week, which was fantastic for the guys as well, because I know that the fans have been out there hoping to get and see the first team game, and that's not happened, and they've came and watched our game. I think it's always important, we talk about this to the players quite often, that we always engage with the supporters when that happens as well, because it's great when we get the interest and we get the support along the way, and obviously hopefully we get that tomorrow as well. But I do think the group being together, adding some of the younger ones along that journey as well, because some of them maybe not spend a lot of time with the B team, but when opportunities to come up to be added to the group for the games and travelling, as you've spoken about going abroad, it's been fantastic for them. And I think there's probably some good close friendships getting built along the way as well. And I think probably finalising and talking about the group, I think they're a good group of lads. And we want to maintain that, but continue to make sure they've got an edge as well, because as much as they're a group just now, as their journey continues to evolve, they'll become individuals, because they need to, ultimately their journey won't stay together. They're all competing themselves to get better, but compete with each other to try and progress, within what we've got here at the club, and hopefully going to the first team.
You mentioned there about other guys who maybe haven't featured as much for the B team, featuring at that kind of under 19 level. Here, does it help you maybe kind of think kind of longer term in terms of guys that might feature more? Has this competition, for example, been really useful for someone like Bailey Rice to really kind of sort of get himself into the fold within the B team? Will there be other players that we can maybe expect to see over the coming months featuring at the Lowland League level?
Absolutely. I think it does show when the younger ones get closer to the group and they see how they mix within the group, they see how they perform within the training sessions within the group, and obviously when you get opportunities to go and play, then they go and take that at the same time as well. So I don't think there's any doubt. I think some of the younger ones that have came closer to it, Paul Nisio, Bailey Rice, obviously Zach Lovelace has been a permanent fixture within the group already anyway. You've got Christian Webster who comes on last week as a younger one who's not featured in the group at all at any point. So these lads will obviously, I would hope, there's always going to try and smell opportunities. But as I said to you, every opportunity to come in the gate, whether it be training with the B team, the 18s, their job is to try and perform and make sure within training sessions they continue to show that they're learning, they're getting better, and any opportunity to get closer to the B team, that they compete with themselves to get better, but also then start looking at those around them in their position and try and challenge them, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. You're always trying to get ahead of somebody within the game, but remembering that somebody's always chasing you at the same time.
And finally, for me, the experience of playing at Firhill with these games and having that home crowd backing, especially when it's during the day, how great has that been for the players to experience that as well, and hoping for the same tomorrow as well?
Fantastic. It's always, I think, any time we get an opportunity for supporters to come along, the players thrive off it. They always speak about it. They always ask that question, how many tickets have been sold, who's turning up today, because they love the feeling that people want to come and watch them, and listen, when you do something well and you get people that see who you are and learn what impact you're having within the group they're currently working at just now, it's building a profile, it's building that understanding of who they might be within those that spend a lot of time and money supporting our club, and we just want to, we hope that the numbers turn up tomorrow. We give the guys, and then up to us, it's up to our players and our staff to try and make sure our performance gives them something to come and enjoy as well at the same time. So hopefully we'll get a turnout tomorrow.